Hello and welcome to the Family Business. I'm Joe Castiglione Jr. alongside Isaac Stoops. Fun times around the Scoop Studios. A lot of talk about the offense. Injuries, Jackson Arnold. I mean, there's a lot of talk. Everybody wants to insert their opinion on what's wrong with the offense. Well, we have a guy who saw the offense, called the game in Jordan Rodgers this previous Saturday. We have him on the show today. Provided a wonderful point of view, maybe some things that they can do better, some things that he saw were good from the defense, and his overall view of Oklahoma. And we also wanted to remind you that Home Field Apparel is the official OU apparel sponsor of Soonerscoop.com. If you want to head over to homefieldapparel.com, use code SCOOP, you're going to get 15% off your first order. I know a lot of people are talking about the shirts that the coaches wore this weekend. That is on the site right now.
Yeah, no, I really like that shirt that Coach Venables and some of the other coaches were wearing. That one stuck out to me beforehand, too. I was like, I really like that shirt because he used to have a hoodie, a gray hoodie that kind of looked the exact same. So really like those.
Now, if you like those, head over to homefieldapparel.com, grab those. And then also exciting because this week, Home Field Apparel is coming to us in Norman, Oklahoma. They're going to have a number of events Thursday, Friday, and Saturday around the campus. Thursday, they're going to have a happy hour at the Standard. That's going to be 4 to 7 p.m. Friday, they're going to have another happy hour, and this is going to be at the Coach's Corner. That's the one that used to be the Penny Hill right on the corner, also from 4 to 7 p.m. And then Saturday, you're going to need to get some food in you. It's going to be a hot day. Why don't you head over to the brunch, 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. at the Noun Hotel. I know Isaac and I and the rest of the Sooner Scoop guys are going to be over there at a few of those events. So make sure to stop by, shop. They're even going to have some of the items that are sold out. They're going to bring those to Norman. So great opportunity to head over there, buy you some new gear. You might need a couple shirts Saturday because it's going to be so hot. You're going to want to prepare an extra shirt. So head over to homefieldapparel.com. Use code SCOOP for 15% off. So, yeah, we got Jordan Rodgers in the studio. Could not be a better time. He called the game alongside Top Hart and Cole Kubelik this past Saturday. And we asked him straight up, what's his impressions of Jackson Arnold? What can this offense do better? And what is he impressed with the Oklahoma team and defense as a whole? So we're going to take you to that interview right now. We now welcome in SEC Network, ESPN, college football analyst Jordan Rodgers. Jordan, thanks for coming on the show.
What's going on, fellas?
Not a whole lot.
Not a whole lot. We're going to talk a little Sooner football. Can't be a better time, of course, for all the people who are watching the game on television. This is the guy you were listening to, him and Tom Hart and Cole as a sideline. So it couldn't be a better time.
Yeah, I'm the one you were saying, man, can that dude shut up? Like, enough, okay? We get it.
Hey, I will tell you on the message boards, it was very positive. And,
oh, good.
That's saying something because the on-field play was not promoting a lot of positivity.
Yeah.
Let's just put it.
Which that usually ends up dictating how people feel about us, right? If your team's sucking, then they're going to be like, oh, this guy stinks. He's just telling me how bad we are. It is what it is.
100%.
But, I had a great first trip to Norman. Crowd was awesome, I thought. The field is really cool. My first time there in general. So it was fun. I hope to get to come back a couple more times.
Probably will one time or the other. So after calling the game, everybody wants to know. The offense is the big talk of the town right now. What did you observe about the Oklahoma offense? What's the biggest flaw? I mean, it's hard to nail it down to one right now, but what's kind of the biggest flaw hindering them from being a successful offense?
Yeah, I think it starts with the offensive line. And look, they were replacing everybody up front anyway, so you knew it was going to be a work in progress. They've had a couple guys banged up, a couple different rotations through 2 games. And when you think about this offense, like the highlights are Jackson flipping the ball out, pushing it downfield. But in this type of offense, the run game's really the gas for the motor, and they can't run the football right now. So when you can't run the football, the RPOs go away, right? And we saw one slant RPO, which was that first touchdown on the short one. And then since they couldn't run the ball the rest of the game, they were never getting that field linebacker to suck in. And so they kept having to go RPO hitch. And then you have Deion Burks catching the ball, which is great, catching it 5 yards downfield, but he's got his back to the defense. So the lack of run game is really inhibiting their ability to get guys in space on the move. And that's when this offense can really, truly be dangerous. And I just think that's the main problem, right? And I think that also bleeds into what we see from Jackson Arnold. And when I watch him, and I love him. I love the kid as a person. Got a chance to do the bowl game last year. So I've been a big fan of his and his talent. I just feel like the game's moving really fast for him right now. And anytime you're not sure about what's going on in front of you, or not trusting that you're going to get the protection that you maybe should on a given play, you start to speed things up. And there was a couple plays, and I called it out in the game, where there was a really nice clean pocket, and Jackson left the pocket really for no reason, and would have had Jake Roberts on a dig route on one of them in the red zone. If he would have just stayed in the pocket, it came open. Another third down I called out, headed in the same direction, but on the other side of the field. Deion Burks comes on a dig route wide open. So if he just trusts that that pocket's there and I have time, there's some big plays that could have happened. But you just see a young quarterback that isn't quite trusting what he's seeing. And when that happens, you look down and you're looking at the rush. And when you start to look at the rush, you can't play the position anymore. So those are a couple things that stand out.
Yeah, a lot of, you mentioned it, a lot of people have been wondering, are we running too many RPOs? I think PFF had it at like 27% of the plays ran were RPOs.
It's fine, right? That's fine if the run game's working. But and look, and I say you need to run the football. That's the gas to the motor. Totally. You don't have to go run for 150 or 200 every game at all. But you have to have the threat of clipping off 10 or 15 at any given moment, because then those linebackers have to respect it, not just with their alignment, but with their eyes post snap. And that's really when you start to steal those plays. So I love the RPO game, and I think they can continue to run it. It can be a staple of the offense. But in order to get explosive with that, you have to get those guys on the run. In order to do that, you have to suck them into the box, and you have to be able to run the football. So I don't mind it at all, because that's going to open up downfield shot plays as well. But when that's not going, the offense is just in a really tough spot, and it's going to be stuck in mud, kind of like what we saw, especially in the second half last week against Houston.
What are some things that they can do in the run game to kind of get it going a little bit? Because part of me says I've kind of seen a couple things from the running backs this year that actually are positive. I think Javonte Barnes really runs hard. I think Taylor Tatum, we haven't seen him a ton, but in limited action, he has showed a lot of burst. But then on the other side, Gavin Sawchuk, our leading rusher from the previous year, he just kind of seems a little bit hesitant. And that obviously is kind of part due. The offensive line is not really getting that push. So what are some things schematically that Oklahoma can do to kind of create more success in the run game?
Well, I think at first it just starts with the offensive line. Like, I mean, I don't care how good you are or not good you are at running back, it's going to be dictated by the kind of push and consistency that your offensive line is getting. So that's a big one. I think you can end up starting to really use the tight end to create surface issues. With how fast Oklahoma is able to go at times, that tight end can give you or give the defense problems depending on where he is, how you move him, even post snap at times really quickly to create an advantage if your offensive line is not getting the push that you want. But I think they need to run Jackson Arnold more. And I hesitate saying that I'm a quarterback, but my first year at Vandy, I really wasn't that developed as a passer. And when I took over as the starter, we needed to run me because we weren't running the football very well. Just lining up and handing it to the running backs. Our offensive line was small, not a problem Oklahoma has, but that was our reality. So I ran the ball 117 times in 7 games in the SEC.
That's a lot of ice paths.
My body hurt because of that. But that's just how we were able to start to manufacture things on the ground. I don't want that from Jackson at all. But I do think, and in talking to Seth Latrell, that is a weapon. And you can start to use that to add numbers to the box. And I think when you're struggling as much as Oklahoma is, you got to find a way to do that. And I think running Jackson, maybe a couple more, not 10 or 15 times, a couple more is really going to help free some of the traditional runs that just aren't hitting.
That was going to be my next question, was if you had the chance to meet with Coach Latrell this week, and what were your first impressions on him?
Yeah, and got a chance to visit with him before the Alamo Bowl as well. So he had just taken over. I would love to play for a guy like Seth Latrell because he's no BS. He's going to tell you exactly how it is. He loves ball. He wants to talk ball. I think him and Jackson have a great relationship. And I think he's got a great feel for who they need to be. But also, when you look at big picture, I don't put a ton of this on his plate with the injuries that we have, you guys have at offensive line, and also what we haven't talked about yet, the receiver group. Mm-hmm. Like, Deion's great. No one on the outside is really winning. Like, they need to get Nick Anderson back. They need to have somebody that can warrant getting a shade from a safety on the outside to open up open up the inside of the field at times. And part of that also, Jackson just looked uncomfortable throwing the deep ball. And I'm just not sure he's trusting the guys he's throwing to. And as a quarterback, anytime you're missing out of bounds multiple times, you're trying to be too cute with the ball, trying to be too careful, which means you're not trusting your guy just to go up and make a play. I had Jordan Matthews and shit, but if I could not throw the ball out of the bounds, I'll underthrow it by 5 yards before I try to be too good with it because I just knew he was going to go up and make a play. I think Nick Anderson's that kind of guy. J.J. Hester maybe can become that kind of guy. I just don't see the comfortability right now with Jackson pushing the ball downfield to those guys. So I think Seth is great. I think this offense is going to be just fine. They need to get healthy at the offensive line position, at the receiver position. And we also need to understand, I know Jackson's a 5-star and there's a ton of hype, but he's a young quarterback. We're going to go through some of this, right? And that's okay as long as you're trending in the right direction.
It's college football, new OC, decimated offensive line, if that's the right word.
Yeah. Totally.
And also with the injuries to the wide receivers, you're looking around and you have Deion Burks, you have Zion Reagans, and most of those snaps against Houston, you have receivers that are like 5'10" or less. And so there isn't really that height on the outside.
Totally.
And that's why you got to find a way to get J.J. Hester going a little bit. We saw a little bit of flashes to them, but without Nick Anderson, you don't have any height. And so it's kind of putting
and Jaden and Jalil. I mean,
those 3 injuries is enough.
Oh yeah,
that's
it hurts.
Your top 3 out of 4 receivers haven't played a snap. I mean, Jalil's played a little bit, but haven't played a snap and they're now injured. So you mentioned a little bit with J.J. Hester. And you saw a little bit with the tight ends what they're doing, a little bit with Bauer Sharp and Jake Roberts, but from a quarterback's point of view, is it just trusting your receivers and trying to get Nick Anderson back? Or what can he do right now? Because it's hard. It's week 3 of the season. Chemistry's developed through the spring, the summer, 7-on-7 sessions, and fall camp. And with these new injuries, what can he do to build that chemistry with those wide receivers that he has right now?
Nothing is better than bad tape, honestly. Because you can do something as much as you want in practice, as much as you want in fall camp, as much as you want in a scrimmage. It's different in the game. Timing is different. How you adjust is different. And we saw that on the interception, right? Even to Deion Burks. Deion Burks has got to hold his line on that post route. I'm not saying it was going to be a great ball. I'm not saying it was going to be complete. But Deion starts the line of his post to the middle of the field. The ball is thrown, and then he jumps behind the safety that's trying to undercut it. Can't do that, right? And that's just learning. That's going, hey, the ball's already up. I have to stay on that line no matter what. And at worst, be a DB and break it up for my quarterback because he's trying to throw me a jump ball. So it's little things like that of just understanding how game reps are so different than practice reps, especially when you have a lot of guys outside of Deion that really haven't played a ton of football. It just happens different. And so you need to go watch the tape. And that's why I said bad tape is the best. Because good tape is awesome. You like to laugh. Hey, look at that. That was a great catch, great throw. You don't really look at the details. When you're going through bad tape, you look at the details and you stress over it and you harp over it and you're sick of it. By the time Monday rolls around, you're like, thank God we can just put this one in the rearview mirror and not talk about it again. So it'll come along, but it takes games like this. Sometimes it takes games like this to wake you up and to really pay attention to some of those small details that are creating bigger problems.
Yeah. Quick question on the offensive line before we move to defensive. They have a number of injuries on there, with a lot of them with the timetable that's to be determined. How much struggles from the offensive line? Yes, they don't have a lot of push, but how much is it from the calls because they don't have a center? They have Josh Bates, but he's a young guy. They don't have Branson Hickman. They had Garen Hatchett, who plays center in the first game. He's now out for the season. So how much of that is just as simple as getting the calls from the center and going to the right guys? Because some of these zone blocking schemes, they're not comboing, to the right backer, or you see kind of guys out of order. So how much is it that? And then is that the easiest thing to improve week to week for the offensive line with the injuries to be determined?
Yeah, communication. I was we did an interview today. I'm calling the Tennessee-Kent State game this weekend, and we were talking to one of the Kent State offensive linemen, and he was talking about this, like how when one guy is not in the gap he's supposed to be in or not working to the guy he's supposed to be, he goes, hey, look, if we're all wrong, we're right. Right. So it's fine. If everybody messes up, at least you're all messing up to the same people and you'll get it blocked up. Right. But if one or two guys are wrong, it's FUBAR and that play could get blown up in a second. So, yes, communication from the center spot, not having Hickman out there. That injury is big just because when you go tempo, things happen fast. The defensive line can stunt, can change right before the snap, and you have to communicate that. And you may only have a half a second. So having continuity is the biggest thing for being successful in a run game, and they haven't had that at the center position and a couple other positions as well. So I think that's a big factor for sure.
Yeah, switching over to defense now. I know it's been two inferior opponents, but How do you see our defense stacking up with the rest of the SEC?
I love the defense. I really do. I'll start with the positive. Stutzman's a freaking baller. You know what I love is that when you watch him on tape and watching the game, like the dude is so fast reading his keys. I mean, rarely is he not meet. If he makes a tackle, he's meeting the running back at the line of scrimmage. He's not meeting him 3 yards downfield. Like he is so quick to know where I got to be, and then he closes ground so quickly, which is dangerous when you're as talented and as physical as he is. And then Billy on the back end. I when I first watched him on tape, I reminded myself of this story. I was sitting in when I played for the Bucks with Dan Orlovsky, who's on ESPN now, I think one of the best. Yeah. We were prepping for Seattle, and it was in their run. It was 2013, and they were 20 or 30 games they'd won at home, maybe not 30, but 20-something games they'd won at home in a row. That defense was the Legion of Boom. And I remember watching Earl Thomas for the first time on film, and in the NFL, not many guys like jump off the film. In college, they do, right? Because there's some really good players and there's some players that are like, eh. In the NFL, it's really hard for someone to jump off the tape. Dude, Earl Thomas jumped off the tape. He looked like he was moving in fast forward and everybody else was jogging. And when I watch Billy, that's how I feel. Like his ability to cover sideline to sideline, to close, his closing speed is ridiculous. So having an eraser on the back end like that, I think is unreal. And when you look at the defense, you have a top 3 linebacker in the entire SEC in Danny. I think you have the best safety in the entire SEC in Billy. And I think the defensive line is deeper and better than maybe they're getting credit for. Like there's a lot of depth there and talent there up front. So this defense is going to be able to keep them in a lot of games. As this offense comes along, I think that could really help them out because the schedule obviously doesn't give them any favors.
Not quite, but it's been a complete 180 in terms of the defensive line depth. I mean, 3 years ago you're looking up, and I'm not sure there was a single guy or two who could have started on this this defensive line. But it's 2 games in, and you said good tape, is always good lap, but there's not a lot of bad. They had a busted coverage, of course, that resulted in the touchdown. But what are the weak spots or the areas of improvement for this defense?
Yeah, I think the one thing that kind of frustrated me watching it, and I pointed it out 1 or 2 times on the broadcast, is just that, to put it bluntly, this Houston passing attack was garbage. Like they were awful.
Not good.
And when I watched the tape going into the game, I was like, this is going to be bad, man. I really thought Oklahoma was going to win it by 50, right? I mean, Houston didn't look good. The guy couldn't throw the football. He played a couple quarterbacks. And Oklahoma just kind of kept giving him the flats and the free access throws. And I just, at times, because of how good their back end is with Billy, I really wanted them to challenge receivers at the line of scrimmage or at least close the gap there on the outside. Because in the SEC, that's going to happen. But the guy catching the ball is probably a 5-star, 4 or 5-star, and he's going to make a play if you give him 3 or 4 yards of cushion every single play. So I'd like to see the defense challenge a little bit more on the outside because they're going to play some teams with some really talented quarterbacks and wide receivers. And if you can't disrupt timing or you just keep giving them the free access throws left and right whenever they want it, it's going to be a long day. And it doesn't matter how good you are at linebacker, how good you are at defensive line, how good Billy is on the back ends. If you just keep giving 4, 5, 6 yards here and there and one broken tackle ends up being 30 or 40, that's going to be a problem. And that's what I saw against Houston. I'm like, man, press them. They're not good at receiver. Their quarterback's not very good. Like, why are we giving him these throws? And I'm like, dude, this guy's like 10 to 12 right now. What is happening? He was 15 to 30 last week. So I think that's one thing that just, and maybe as they develop and as they get more confident on the outside there, that'll come along. But they're definitely going to need to be better at corner, or at least more physical at times at corner, I think, when the SEC play hits.
It didn't really hurt them in terms of like the points, but in terms of the time of possession.
Totally.
I mean, you're looking up. Houston had a lot of empty drives, but in credit to Willie Fritz, I think Willie Fritz is a phenomenal coach, and he knows what he had, and he knows what he was going to have to do to win that game. But you look up.
I will say, Venables called it too. We talked to Venables before the game, and we usually, I like talking about scheme and players and stuff, and we kind of finished up some questions. He's like, "Y'all didn't ask me about Houston at all," and he's like, I was like, well, I was just, I don't remember what he said. And he's like, man, don't count out Willie. They're not going to have another game like they just had. Trust me. They're going to show up and play. That's how much respect he has for Willie Fritz. And he was right? I mean, they look like a completely different team than they did against UNLV.
Yeah. One guy I wanted to ask you about is Payton Bowen. as good as he is and as young as he is, he reminds me, kind of how Billy was when he came in and, played so early. What do you see on, with him? Because his upside, I feel like, is very high.
Huge, super talented, rangy. And in talking to Billy, especially, he was kind of tasked this year with being like the best communicator on that side of the ball, especially with Payton, because you have such a talented younger player. And Billy has seen so much football that at times when you've played that much ball, you see things, things are going to happen, but you don't communicate them. And that's when busted coverages can happen or easy throws can happen when maybe you could have realized, hey, out of this formation, they're trying to come at me in this direction or they're trying to hit that dig route at 15, whatever it is. So that was interesting talking to Billy about his relationship with Payton and really what he's been tasked to do in this last year. Obviously, he wants to improve his draft stock, but the ability to share that knowledge and help him come along faster is going to be huge. Because again, like I said, I think they're elite on the second level. And as Payton comes along, I think they're going to be elite on the third level as well. Obviously, Billy already is, but as a unit. So as he comes along and kind of soaks up some of that knowledge, I think it's going to be a dangerous back end for this team for sure.
Robert Spears-Jennings as well. I think he's been on that second level. Billy, Danny, I think Robert Spears-Jennings, Grayson Halton. Kobe played really well.
Kobe played good, yeah.
Dominic Williams, I think that second level of players have really come along really well. One more question about the defense. You mentioned a little bit with the defensive line. I mean, it's not going to be a Tennessee, as you're going to see, as you've seen probably so far. Tennessee is loaded on that front seven. And it's not going to be a Georgia. But where does this defensive line kind of match up a little bit? Is it good enough to rotate with the SEC offense against the SEC offensive line going forward?
Yeah, just because I think they're so deep. And that's – I'm really high on Ole Miss this year just because of what they added defensively. But I will say they better stay healthy because they don't have depth, right? They're really good. Their first 11 on defense are really good. But there's a drop-off after that. And so I think the luxury that Oklahoma has is having the young guys, Jaden Jackson getting a ton of time. I think he's incredibly talented. David Stone as well, a highly touted guy that will develop into a really good player. And the only reason he's not yet is just experience, right? But he's going to be a guy that can provide a ton of depth and juice on that second, third rotation. So, look, I think more so in this league, depth is important than having one or two dudes that are the best of the unit, right? I mean, and you'd love to have those, but if you have that no depth, you're screwed. It's too long of a schedule. It's too brutal of a schedule. You won't survive. So I think the fact that they're built with depth and there's maybe not oh my gosh, this guy is one of the best in the SEC. It doesn't matter, right? Because the schedule is brutal for how much of a grind it is once you hit the middle of the season. And I think some of that youth that I just mentioned is going to bode well for them, putting themselves in a situation that they could be in some games or win some games that maybe you were didn't think they'd be able to.
Yeah. We were talking about it, offset, but you've obviously been to a lot of the cities in the SEC. What was your general impression of Norman, going to be an SEC town now?
So the only crappy part is I spent 11 hours in Norman.
Oh,
not even.
Yeah.
So because I do the game day show SEC Nation Saturday morning, I was in Lexington and then I fly Saturday afternoon to the night game. So I landed in Norman at 3. Okay. And then so I went to the hotel, changed my suit, put some deodorant on and went straight to the stadium. And then afterwards, go to the hotel and wake up for a 5 a.m. flight. So once SEC Nation comes to Norman, I'll actually get to experience Norman. But still haven't been. I'd say stadium's awesome. I love how, dude, there's no freaking sidelines. It's pretty awesome. The fans are right there. I would love that if I was a home team. I would hate it if I was an away team. So the fans were awesome. The game day experience is great. The booth is good, which is, no one cares except for me. That the booth is good. There's some bad ones in the SEC. Booth is good. But looking forward to actually coming to be able to spend a Friday night in Norman, which when SEC Nation arrives, we'll be able to do that.
Yeah, we probably could tell you some spots.
Yeah.
Where should I go though? Where's the best? Where's the best food spot?
I mean,
and for food, you need to go to the Ranch in Norman. That or Benvenuti's for Italian. Those are really good places to eat. But you got to stop by Campus Corner Friday night or Saturday. Just run through. That's our bar scene here. That's where Sooner Scoop Studios are located. but that's our bar
I'll
scene.
partake.
Exactly.
I'm not afraid of a little an adult beverage on a Friday night.
Let us know.
Exactly.
But hey, how about this? Where's the best breakfast burrito? I'm a big breakfast burrito guy. You got any good breakfast burritos?
Not quite
Or
breakfast.
tacos?
Not quite breakfast burritos, but tacos. So Rudy's, it is a chain, but Rudy's breakfast
Okay.
tacos, Rudy's barbecue breakfast tacos, fantastic,
Love it.
and it's half a mile from the stadium, maybe
Perfect.
0.75 miles from the
Done.
stadium.
Next time I'm there, I'm doing it.
Easy in and out. You grab 2, 3, 4, 5 on the way to the stadium. Fantastic. Right before your set, SEC Network. That'd be great. And then we're trying to build our tailgating scene up a little bit. Of course, Oklahoma fans are great, but we're trying to match that SEC level of intensity on a game.
Yeah.
What makes a great SEC city? I mean, we can't change the buildings, we can't change the restaurants, but like on a game day, what makes a great SEC environment?
I think you're right. I think it's the tailgating and really the proximity to the stadium of the tailgating. You know, like the Grove is one of my favorite spots to go and to have a show. We set up our game day show right in the Grove. So it's awesome. Now that's a different animal, right? I mean, they got chandeliers hanging from the tents and people are dressed to the nines. Like, I don't need all that. But I think just the game day experience of having, tailgating and fans in close proximity to the stadium is special. And that's kind of what that Ole Miss is one of the best. I think South Carolina as a game day environment's really underrated as well. They have these big like caboose train tailgate spots right next to the stadium that are really cool. So there's some Lexington was better than actually I thought. We were in a new spot for our game day show last week. Usually we're like right by the stadium, so we're not really near where the tailgating is, but we were out in the parking lots with the tailgating. It was rocking out there. So that to me is college football, right? I mean, I went to Pac-10 games when it was Pac-10 and when it actually existed, growing up. And I thought that was really cool. And then once I went to Vanderbilt and went on the road, I was like, oh, this is what college football is. Like, this is what it's supposed to be. You know what I mean? Like, it's just a different animal in the SEC. The Big 12, obviously, that Oklahoma has been in is a great football conference as well. The SEC's just got some really special spots.
Ole Miss is one I'm really excited to go to. That's my away game this year.
Have you been yet?
No, so I'm really excited to be in there, yeah.
So the best part about Ole Miss, too, is the square downtown's really fun. Okay. Bunch of cool bars. You either got to go to the library or Funky's, 2 bars that are really fun to go. There's a bunch of really good spots to eat as well down there. Auburn's another great spot for tailgating, for food. It's hard to go wrong. Yeah. I'd say Nashville, Vandy probably is the worst like tailgating, but we got Nashville. Yeah. So
it makes up, more than makes up for it. Hey, and the new stadium renovations. I was actually there for a wedding this past Memorial, and I walked by it, and my first thought was like, I don't know how this is going to get to occupancy for game day, but they're working through the renovations. Stadium? Yeah, Vanderbilt's, but it's going to be really cool.
Yeah, they got like one side that's kind of functional, I think. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I walked by, I was like, I don't know how they're going to host a game. And, they get super creative. You kind of saw it with Florida State. They have like the tarped. They're working on Bill Campbell right now. They have it tarped at the top. People thought they didn't have people show up. I'm like, no, they're going through construction.
Yeah. It's Florida State.
It's Florida State, trust me. Well, that's a whole other fish to fry right now. But biggest surprises in the SEC season, 2 weeks through. But big surprises, you kind of mentioned South Carolina. Of course, game day's heading there this weekend. They had a really good win over Kentucky this long weekend. Or, hey, your Vandy, Diego Pavia. That dude's a dog. What's your biggest surprises first 2 weeks through the SEC season?
Yeah, I think South Carolina beating Kentucky like that was a big surprise. I think just how talented they are up front. Like Dylan Stewart, true freshman defensive end's the real deal. Kyle Kennard, the other defensive end. That's going to be – you want a matchup to watch this weekend. You got 2 of the best pass rushers right now in the country from a numbers perspective. I think from a talent perspective, they're up there too, against 2 future first-round tackles from LSU. That's going to be a sweet matchup. Vandy, big one, right? I mean, like I think the best thing Clark Lee did was take over the defense. He's a defensive coordinator at his core. Like he's one of the best. That's why he got the opportunity in the first place. And then bringing the entire offensive side of football from New Mexico State was a pretty damn good idea as well, because you get a quarterback, an offensive coordinator, and a former head coach all in your building that are all on the same page. So you just accelerate your learning curve with a new staff big time. That was awesome to see. I'd probably say what else stands out. Oh, okay, here's Florida. So I was a huge fan of Graham Mertz, and I thought he got a lot of undue criticism for kind of them not being great last year when he played at a high level. And so he was in concussion protocol last week, and I said, look, this is still his job it's still his job. DJ's talent, DJ Lagway's talented, but he's not ready yet. And then I flipped on the tape. Yo, DJ Lagway, I was unfamiliar with your game, son. The kid can freaking ball.
True freshman.
Like,
second game of his
career.
career.
True freshman. And the dude, I mean, he was making throws. Like, you saw that throw from Anthony Richardson in the NFL the other day?
Yeah.
I mean, DJ had a couple of those throws, like off his back foot, like 60 yards downfield, on the freaking money. I would hand the keys over to him right away. Because if you're Florida and you're realistic about where you are, like, you need a game changer at that position more than you need a game manager. I think Graham was a great game manager. I think he's still a really good quarterback. But DJ's a special talent. And you got to bottle that, and you got to let him run with it. So I think that was like a huge surprise. I was like, dude, I don't care who it was. I can't remember who they played. Someone terrible. But he was unreal. Like, the throws, the timing, the accuracy, the athleticism, the arm strength. So that was pretty crazy to see.
Before we wrap up, I got to ask. So we know you as the football guy, but how is it like having a whole nother demographic know you as, like the Bachelor? Like, it's almost like you got two lives almost.
100%. Dude, even still, as we walk the stadium on game days and stuff, like most people now in the SEC, I mean, we've been the Saturday night game for 8 years now. So everybody knows our crew, knows who we are. But I still get more people who are like, where's JoJo? Like, oh my gosh, I remember watching you on The Bachelorette. Like, it's just a crazy, like, there are so many football fans that also happen to be reality TV fans back when I was on it. So it's a crazy world. I'm blessed because it's afforded me a lot of opportunities outside of football, hosting reality shows with my wife. And it's a fun world to be a part of. I still love football, and I still love, those guys that come up dressed to the nines with a beer in their hand, like, hey, man, my wife needs a picture. Like, like, can I take a picture? I'm like, come on, you watched it too. You watched it too.
Yeah. He's using that excuse. I mean, I was with somebody this
weekend. They don't want to admit it, but
I was with somebody this weekend. They come up to me like, I just saw Jordan Rodgers. I'm like, yeah, he's calling the game. He's like, wait, he's calling the game? He's a football announcer? I'm like, yeah. He's like, you know who that is? I'm like, oh yeah, I do.
Yeah, I'm familiar with
every
his
now
game.
and still, again, walking through the stadium in my suit, people will be like, wait, what are you doing here? And I'll be like, oh, I'm calling the game. They're like, you work in football? I'm like, yeah.
I dabble. Holy cow.
Hey, Jordan, for everybody watching, can you give out all your socials, your show, your YouTube page and everything so everybody can follow you on that?
Yeah, man, just Instagram and Twitter. X is JRodgers11. And then I got a handle called The Weekend on Instagram. I think it's The Weekend CFB, like college football. I just put out some content, quarterback rankings, film breakdowns, just some stuff I'm seeing. I realized I was doing so much prep on all now 16 of these teams, and I only get to talk on TV for about a half an hour. I'm like, I got so much more shit to say. So I release some stuff on there every week, and then eventually, once we kind of hit conference play, it'll be a longer form podcast at some point. But right now, I'm just putting out some short stuff on Instagram.
Awesome. Have you released your week 2 quarterback power rankings yet?
I literally have it right here. I just got it edited, so they're going live here very shortly. Any guesses?
Okay, I'm just asking. Any guesses? I think
at 1.
There's a shakeup at 1 now. I'll tell you that.
Who was
and
it?
There's 3 new people on the list.
Who was it last week?
Beck. I still think Beck's the best, but
if there's a shakeup at 1,
I mean, did you put Milrow at 1?
No.
That was like 4 or 5.
Yeah.
Go again.
Oh, come on. Biggest game of last week.
I'm blanking. Oh,
Nico.
No. Nico's up there, though. I like Nico.
Yeah, he's real good. We're going to see
that. You're
too.
forgetting a very big one in a big house.
Oh, Quinn Ewers.
Yeah.
Quinn Ewers.
Well, yeah. Okay, yeah. He's that.
Hey, I'll tell you,
dude.
Yeah,
some of the throws
so
he
good.
made. There's one throw that it was making its way on X. Someone had the replay from the end zone view. He scrambles up in the pocket, throws it to his tight end. But literally, as soon as he releases the ball, and there's coverage. It's not like a guy standing there by himself naked in the end zone. He looks right at the defensive lineman and starts talking some what.
Yeah.
And the ball is not even halfway there. It was like Steph Curry, like shooting a 3 and just turning around and walking away. Like, it was ridiculous. That dude, he's playing on another level right now. He's a baller.
Him and Sark. I'm telling you, Sark has the ability to do a lot of things that a lot of offensive coaches don't. I mean, he gets his running backs involved. I mean, talking about it. I was listening to talk about it the other day. Just the way he's able to dump it off to his running backs, and they're able to look up, and they have like one guy or no guy, and so they're able to make a move.
Yeah.
And
So there's two guys I put in this category. I'm sure there's more, but these are the two that have stood out the most. Steve Sarkisian and Lane Kiffin are the two best in-game adjustment play callers that I've ever been around. And what I mean by that, a lot of guys can have a plan first half, and then now with tablets you can change much quicker. But make some adjustments and come back. Hey, they were doing this coverage or this formation. Next quarter or next half, let's come back against something else, dude. If you show Sark or Lane something that they see and they like, 2 plays later, they're dialing up something for a touchdown. Like, it is unbelievable how quickly those guys are able to go, here's what they're doing. Here's how I can change this play and get a touchdown. And I was asking Jackson Dart about that last year during a game. He goes, man, I asked him about a specific touchdown that I'm like, dude, you guys just ran a play similar 2 plays ago, and then the defense did this, and 2 plays later you hit this. And Jackson's like, yeah. So he signaled in a formation and a concept and a signal that we hadn't used in 2 years. He's like, we hadn't practiced that play, but he's like, out of this formation, let's do this concept that we hadn't even practiced this year, and called it something that they hadn't called in 2 years. But Jackson's like, oh yeah, I know what that is, and signaled it the way you're supposed to, and they hit a touchdown. Like, it's just crazy. There's guys that just they process different, man, and there's a lot of really good ones, but those two are like at the top of the list for that.
Yeah, if you want to go watch some film, just watch 2 of those guys. Does Jackson make a move up or down? Well,
he ended up moving down just because I bumped Carson down. So now top 3, spoiler alert, is Quinn, Carson, Jackson.
Okay. Well, fantastic. Thanks for coming on the show. Couldn't be a better time. It was a lot of fun talking to you.
Yeah, appreciate it, fellas.
All right, appreciate it. For everybody watching, remember to like, comment, and subscribe. It helps us help you. And we'll catch you next week with another edition of The Family Business. Remember to keep it in the family.